Welcome to Literature News, the podcast on YouTube. I am Hans-Georg Ruprecht. Hi there at Literature News in Ottawa. It's such a pleasure and an honor to welcome to our mobile studio the award-winning poet, fiction writer, scholar, and essayist Nicola Vulpe. Great to have you here.
Well, thanks very much. I'm honored.
Well, so am I. Let me add just a few introductory remarks, and please correct me if I get it wrong. You were born in Montreal and later completed your education with a doctorate in philosophy at the Sorbonne, Paris. You then taught at the Universidad de León in Spain, before returning to Canada and settling in Ottawa. You have published a novella, The Extraordinary Event of Pia H., as well as essays and articles on subjects as diverse as the 12th tablet of the Epic of Gilgamesh, dealing with irony and the unity of the Gilgamesh epic. And I am so impressed, published in the very prestigious and highly regarded Journal of Near Eastern Studies, an essay on that. This is scholarly work of great significance and value. And you have published also, astonishing enough, on theory of literature, focusing on Pierre Bourdieu and on the afterlife of Norman Bethune, for us in Canada, quite significant. Now, you have edited with Maha Albari the definitive anthology, Sealed in Struggle, Canadian Poetry and the Spanish Civil War. 270 pages at Concertine Publishers in 1995. This will be, and is in fact, the reference for our Canadian response to that what has marked so much the imagination and the political struggle during the first part of the 20th century in many countries, by the way, also was Pablo Neruda, Octavio Paz, many European writers. I'm thinking of André Malraux, George Orwell, Arthur Koestler, Willy Bredel, Erika and Klaus Mann, among many others, who supported the Spanish Republic and who were in one way or another connected to the international brigades or documented the conflict. Many other people were involved. And you assembled texts there and brought these authors back to our full national sense of historical consciousness. Moreover, our listeners may have come across with your poems and translations, which appeared in prestigious journals such as the Antigonish Review, Carousel, the Ex-Puritan, the Manhattan Review, the Montreal Serai, and Stand magazine. And now it comes for us today, the main reason why we're here together. You are the author of 5 collections of poetry. That is Blue Tile at Bushek Books in 2004, which includes your Spanish notebook. And upon reading it, Nicola Vulpe, I couldn't help but think of Miles Davis' Sketches of Spain.
Oh.
Yes, because your notes and your little observations are precisely sketches which, and I have been to Spain as well, which really give us this kind of taste I should say, of that wonderful Mediterranean country. Then came with edition Guernica, Insult to the Brain, 2019, and now this is one of your most intriguing title, and it shows already right away your poetic imagination and your love for languages. You're a polyglot, by the way. I should have said this, fluent in Spanish and French and many other languages. So this volume is called Through the Waspmouth. I drew you. The Waspmouth. Imagine that. Both collections received the very prestigious Fred Cogswell Awards for Excellence in Poetry. Your most recent collection is called On the News That Sagittarius A Grows Hungrier, also published by edition Guernica in the Essential Poets series, volume 317, 2025. Well, what else? Please tell me, Nicola, if I can ask you this so casually, and let's concentrate, if you would, on your work as a poet. How to begin, how to start this kind of way towards your impressive work. Maybe it was a very simple question. When did you get into writing poetry? And how did it evolve? How did you get into irony and the unity of the Gilgamesh, epic tablet 12a, and published about that this very impressive scholarship? How were your beginnings?
Oh my gosh. Well, first of all, thank you very much for that introduction. I don't think I recognize that very accomplished person you were talking about there, because I'm
Never
like,
mind.
Really?
It's
But,
you.
okay, well, thank you very much. That's very kind of you to bring up all these things that belong to things I've done in my life, yes. You asked about the Epic of Gilgamesh. Well,
Yeah, that's right.
I still remember I lived for a time in London, Ontario, place that I never liked. Anyway, that's fine. I lived there, and I was in the public library, and I came across, I think it had just come out, the N.K. Saunders Penguin edition of the Epic of Gilgamesh, and I was just taken by that poem, by the story, and it stuck with me, and it's still with me. And the whole business about that essay was that a lot of scholars, and I think majority opinion is still that the 12th tablet doesn't really belong. But I think that's my personal view is that I think it's an arrogant view, because if the people who wrote the epic and the many, many different editions of the epic put it there must be a reason. And that's a little bit, some people may recognize Tolkien. Tolkien wrote an essay about Beowulf, arguing that
Right.
even though it wasn't Greek, it's not Greek or Roman, it's a brilliant epic. And I took the same cue from him, saying, well, if it's there, not Greek or Roman, maybe it's there for a reason. I tried to understand it, and the essay was trying to explain that how this helps us, that the 12th tablet is different, doesn't quite fit into the story the same way, but I would take it like a way for us to reflect back on what happens in the epic, because we know what's going to happen. We know he's going to die. And my view is that that Gilgamesh, we watch him become a human being, and he becomes better than a god. He becomes human, and that the 12th tablet helps us understand that. And I shouldn't go on about that too long. I think
No.
anyway. But in Gilgamesh, Anyway, it's a work that I keep going back to. I must have 12 or 14 different versions of it at home in translation. I've taken a try at learning some Akkadian and Sumerian, and I know how to write a couple of symbols in cuneiform, and that's it. I'm not an Assyriologist. I don't know Akkadian. I don't know Sumerian. That would be a life's work, and I only have one life.
Nevertheless, it took quite a bit of courage. I mean, it's, to me, adventurous, daring, to pick up that amazing work. And I mean, you could have done something on Shakespeare, or if you wanted to have done something on classical, but the Gilgamesh offered you, and I read, of course, your article. It seems to be something that runs through your poetic work. First of all, well, irony, you discovered this chronological irony, the structural reversed quest, and ethical, on the one hand, ignored advice, and on the other hand, followed, and trivial objects. So there was the deconstruction through irony, through poetic processes, is something, as we will see a little bit later, which characterizes your poetry. And this brings me to the question which I find always puzzling, which when I went through your volumes and collections again, the question to what extent these books, though quite different, have something in common. And I would like to hear from you, how do you see the major 5 books now, that took time to develop, but there is your voice, I should say. There is a thread running through. How would you describe it? I mean,
that's a tough one, because I tend to try not to think about myself as a writer or a poet. Because that's we talked about doing some work in academic scholarly work, and that's so different. And poetry, you write it, you try to figure it out. It works, it doesn't work. Throw it away if it's no good. Revise it. And I think, I mean, I can look back, and there are things that I'm can reflect on that, that seems to be a thread through it. I mean, I think, to try to put it in a simple or try to be succinct, it's trying to understand ourselves in the world. And that world can be very personal. It can be an intimate relationship, an issue with ourselves. It can be political, about the state of the world. It can be wondering about the state of the cosmos. And it's so much about, and that's, if there's a thread, it's probably poetry is a way of trying to understand the world, both by doing the poetry, by reading it, by sharing it, and so on. I hope that makes some sense.
Well, it does. It does. And to be clear, it was perhaps not a very fair question. I was expecting your reaction to that.
Oh, it was any questions are fair. I just,
no.
Just for me to.
No, Nicola Vulpe, no. It's not that I'm asking you to explain your work.
Thank you.
After all, in Sagittarius A Star, there is a poem called The Cruelest Science.
Oh, yes.
That reads, and maybe give us the pleasure to read it again. And there is the answer to my question.
The Cruelest Science. Do not tell me how a poem works. Spare me your taxonomies, slant rhyme, assonance, echo, metaphor, simile, etc., etc. Vivisection is the cruelest science. The quivering thing always dies, and we no nearer God than when we pulled it from its cage.
Yes, I think that says it all, right? And
but if it says it all, how am I ever going to write another poem? If I got it all in those 8 lines.
Well, we're going to come to this because you have quite a list in this collection, but also about that very issue, as if by now, as if you have reached in your writing something like your ars poetica, the way you do poetry, not the way you would like or you have, no, the way, that's my way of doing it, right? But let me come back precisely to that poem, but that it's not a question to subject a poem to the grid of close reading methods. That is not what we would like to do now, and it's perhaps not even for you a concern. I'm here, of course, thinking of Umberto Eco, who published a book on interpretation and over-interpretation, together with philosopher Richard Rorty, Jonathan Culler, and Christine Broke-Rose, where he explains in many instances what over-interpretation is. So we are not going into that exercise. However, and let me come back to the observation on the feeling that you have reached, so to speak, at the moment where you are clear about what you want to do. You have Of Inspiration, a poem. You have Spaziani's Theory of Poetry. Then you have the amazing poem, Poetry, the Sublime Art. And the poem Arrived Before Dawn. Then Poem of the Poem, and a lovely, lovely poem, Lulu's Poem. Lulu is your daughter, is this so?
Yes, yeah. Leonore, when she was younger, we called her Lulu.
Lulu, that's right. So Leonore, right. So Lulu's poem, it's in the blue tile, in the first volume. And then, very interesting for your work, in Through the Waspmouth I Drew You. It's the poem 30. When you just turn to the Icelandic poets, you know. Yes. I love that. That is so revealing of your art, insofar as it is a deconstruction, if I may use this term, very fashionable in literary criticism now, where you are deconstructing this kind of romanticized trope of the Viking kind of bards and singers, and where you, and this is precisely the thing I find so fascinating, where you are also a wordsmith, where you create occasionally nonce formation, words that nonce formation insofar as that they don't exist in lexicon, right? Mm. For instance, this mead cup thumpers. Apparently it's not in standard English, but it tells us something about, well, mead, the alcoholic drink made from fermented honey. I had to check it out. I had no idea. And then, of course, the cup, and then thumpers, people who are happy with their cups, you know. So in this poem, you question, in fact, a concept, deconstructed, and shows us let's say, suggests what really matters to you insofar as poetry goes. Huh? Let me say that. Well, see this here. This is okay. This is in the other volume. Yeah. Yeah. The Waspmouth. Yeah. Would you like to read this as well? Because there we get really what you... Here it is.
Okay. All of 30.
Yeah, just only the main thing. But
I turned to the Icelandic poets. They knew how to sail. But no, not the blonde-haired ancients, not the skalds, axe-throw louts, not they drop-jawed before shimmering at baculi, not they mead-cup thumpers. No, the moderns, they who write about gardens, they whose pretty curtains frame life, whose wind-whipped flowers inspire. Or maybe the atom poets, they stop by on Sunday for tea. They're lying, of course. I've seen the wind-rotten place, a singular puffin dot, sleet pushed skyward.
Thank you.
Thank you
for reading that, because there we have got something which, and I will try to summarize this in a moment, which I don't want to use again the word inspiration, but which is your way of writing and using your observations, sensory impressions, and when you said in another poem, that's the way how it begins. And there is one poem which is very, very short. We'll come to this in a moment. It is object related, and it's not procedure. You have a phrase on this in your poem as well. I think you have a digital experience with different programs. And what do you mean by poetry that is starting with an observation? I give you one example also, which I found so amazing. This is very early in your Blue Tile volume, Spanish notes, in the Blue Tile, the Spanish notes. You are recording or remembering something from the Basque land, and there is one line that is absolutely amazing to me, and it's so concise, and this is the way you start to work, You see, for instance, Basque men sitting in front of a coffee, and this one line, how they wear their beret.
Oh.
And it's not,
yes.
You say, it's not flopped to the side as the French have it, but the Basque way of wearing the beret is pointed towards the other, So with this little observation, you just cut it, you just create this poetic, for me as a reader, pleasure.
Well, thank you. I mean, that's very kind.
And it goes, I could give you many other examples of that. I have the time to go through others. But tell me about that experience, or these experiences, in fact. You said about the Icelandic poems, you said about the Icelandic poets, that you are, in quote, inspired by the modern who write about flowers and gardens, Well, what do you really mean? You don't mean flowery poetry, but you mean that people see, sense, smell, right?
Because I mean, thank you. Everything you said makes sense to me, but I'm really, I try. It's a strange experience for me, for you to be talking about these poems this way, because it's actually something I try not to do. Is it about think about them that way?
Oh, they come like that. Yeah,
they come like that, and when I work them, and afterwards, they're there. Once they're done, right? Once I give up on them, then they're not going to be any, whatever it is. Either it's not going to get any better, and either I'll keep it or I'll throw it out.
Yeah.
At that point, I don't want to, I do this with other people's work, but I don't want to examine how it was put together or how it works.
No, I'm not
and
asking
what you're
that.
saying, it's for me, is this like this revelation. Oh, okay, well, good. I'm glad it works.
Yeah, it works. It does. It does.
And yes, I think that not all poetry, but I think a lot of poetry, for it to work, or any art, can be some small detail, and our world is often a very big blur. But then some small detail about the way someone picks up a pencil, or the way a leaf flickers in the wind, things that we experience in our sensory experience, it can bring a whole world for us. And sometimes they're often things that we don't notice when we're asked about something. If we were put on the witness stand to say what happened then, it's not something we would consider important, but if we bring it up, suddenly whatever is there becomes more real or more present for us, even if it's imagined.
Yeah, well, presence, that's the key word for me, It is, as the French said, I think it was Zola, une tranche de vie, un moment de la vie. Hein? It's a moment which was intense for you, which was puzzling you, or irritating you, or stimulating you, but it always has something to do with a momentary experience of life, of being alive, And this is so stimulating in it, and you can take, as a reader, so much home from that. And, by the way, this would be another thread or feature of your writing. It is dialogical. You always talk either to your lyrical ego, to your lyrical self, to another part of yourself, or you create characters being out of the world, even imaginary beings, but it could even be an animal, two animals, talking to each other. Or let's say you create these characters, This is, since you have a background in literary theory, and you mentioned this somewhere, I guess, it's Bakhtin, right? It's a dialogical principle in Bakhtin, in Mikhail Bakhtin, the great Russian scholar. Yeah. So, could you expand a little bit about what the otherness in terms of humanity in your poetry means to you? So you're not. It's not. Nothing of your stuff is monological. Your work is always addressing. Well, in many cases, addressing something, someone, and creating thereby an issue. Right.
I'm going to be very frank. It's something I have absolutely never thought about. This is a discovery for me, and I have to thank you. But I wonder what it's going to do now for my ability, if I'm going to be looking over my shoulder and say, who am I addressing here? But when I was listening to you say this, I said, that's true. And I'm running through these poems. I'm saying, that's true. I am addressing someone. And I guess but it's not something, as I said, I'm not much of a planner, and I'm not terribly reflective but consciously. Okay, thank you. But when at least with poetry, if I were looking at somebody else's poems and trying to do some scholarly analysis or literary analysis of it, I hopefully would pick up on things like this as you did. But for my own work, I never. But now that you say it, I said,
Do you need otherness?
To get into all that, well, absolutely. There's without the other, we don't exist.
Okay. Now there's perhaps the moment where we could insert the title poem of your most recent volume on the news that Sagittarius A Grows Hungrier. You kindly prepared a reading for us, and we will cut it in at this very moment. Yeah.
Thank you. On the news that Sagittarius A Grows Hungrier. It was in the second year it reached us. We live, after all, distantly. We were unprepared, of course. No one had troubled to inform us of its trajectory or of the simple measures known to defeat it. At the center, we learned, Ophiuchus had grown increasingly voracious. Unnoticed, we thought perhaps we'd just manage. When the serpent consumed its children, it might also consume itself. Beyond any charted constellation, distant from even a junior satrap's court, in our shivering villages, perhaps we'd just manage. I am told the weather at the center is pleasant, constant and warm. They do not know ice. Here, on still days, birds drop from the sky. When it arrived, we took no notice. It's not that no one died. People always die. Children, we all wanted the red chairs framed in chrome, the chairs of fame and ambition. But they were never for us. We have no great cities from which we'll flee, tired of the light, tired of the noise, no long black beaches where under parasols silk-wrapped courtiers stroll. Our streets are usually muddy, our technology and fashions rudimentary, as are also our manners and emotions. We express ourselves stumblingly. Our languages, after all, are devoid of abstractions. An idea is equal to a stone, a legal codicil a post, an argument a stream bed or a comet trail, an ejaculation. And love, well, love, when we hazard it, an awkward but permanent exchange of shoes and bed sheets. We ornament our poems with pseudoscience, caged quarks and the like spinning or barking, no one's troubled to complain. What import, after all, muddled science in muddled poems, in an insignificant language, in a barren land where locks are unknown, because there's nothing to steal. And anyway, so distant as to be beyond returning. All communication with us is into the past. What microbe or virus could assail such rueful life? Yes, we wanted the red chairs with chrome frames, the red chairs of fame and ambition. All we got was rumors. From the center we surmised, from those cities we'd seen in pictures, cities of satin and alabaster and red lacquer. From the center where the serpent ate and ate and ate and grew hungrier. Rumors of warehouses, ships of medicines, vaccines not destined for wind-tortured villages beyond the lazy reaches even of cold light. And the waiting, the horizonless wait. We send you our condolences for your losses. We've posted our list inside of what here make do for public buildings. We believe them complete, though approximate. The last census, school registrations, birth notices. If anyone should pass and the paper holds, at least we'll still have our names.
Nicola Vulpe, thank you so much for this. Well, let's come back precisely to the notion of otherness, There you are imagining, and this is the most ambitious endeavor, you are imagining the world in a different galaxy, let's put it simply, or a different universe where things are totally different. And let me go into this here. And unnoticed, we thought, perhaps, when the serpent consumed its children, it might also consume itself. Of course, this is a reference to the constellation, right? Right?
Yes.
And,
which is next to Sagittarius.
Well, it's to the of Eucus, right?
Yes.
Right. And, well, for you in this thematic key poem of the volume, it is otherness to whom you talk, right? With whom or they talk to you. And for me, I'm a little bit intrigued by science fiction and Star Wars and all that. And the idea that they are talking to us already, is the idea that we are in contact, maybe, maybe in this room, who knows? Is puzzling. It's really puzzling. And it has nothing to do with kind of fantasy. I'm told the weather at the center is pleasant, constant and warm. They do not have ice. So who is talking there in this poem? I am told, is it your literal ego, or is it them, or is it someone who is coming from that universe? In other words, my question is really, what is otherness? Here you have really it's very strong, almost phantasmatic view of otherness, namely stellar, cosmic otherness.
Well, as I think we could go full circle, because from this, as I said, in my view, it's not like south to the other is hell and all that. Absolutely not. No. But as I said, as I think I said, we exist because of others, and if we can take full circle back to Gilgamesh, where he starts out, and this is my interpretation, that he starts out as he's a demigod, but he starts out believing he's a god and behaving as one. And his whole journey as a being through the epic is learning about what human beings have to live through, losing a friend, finding the limits to his powers, and finding his responsibilities as a king, and finally realizing that he's going to die like everyone else. And then he says, well, okay, I can eat this plant and live forever, but why would I? By myself. And just think of the utter loneliness of Atrahasis. He's there with his wife, and there's just the two of them, and they have survived and been given eternal life. What's the point?
Yes.
And so otherness is, in my view, otherness is what defines us in innumerable ways. It's an infinite number of ways that we define them, of course, because it always goes to us. And for this poem, I think I can say is that, yes, I did take on a voice. Who it might be exactly, it's never clear to me. I think it should be clear. Hopefully it will be clear to you who you decide it is. Because I don't own that poem anymore. It's there. It's yours now.
I thank you for that, because this is a gift. You made art to us, And this is the way I read it, and it challenges me. It challenges me also insofar as, I mean, scientifically speaking, the little I know about the theory of relativity and so forth, and time and space and so forth, seems to connect with that amazing line here. We have heard it, but I would like to quote it again. All communication with us is into the past. We don't want to talk about the scientific subtext, but what do you mean by that? That there is perhaps a world where we are not talking in terms of time future, but you can, in this poem at least, suggest that there are other possibilities. And this is interesting for me as your reader. There are perhaps other ways of thinking about my own time. It's perhaps silly to say this. It's not the question I have reached the age. No, it's not that. But occasionally, I am thinking, how was this in the 60s or in the 80s, when I was in another country, right? So to communicate with me in that other country means to communicate into the past, as your phrase goes. Is this for you a life experience, or is it just poetry? Can you? What is your concept of time? Your personal time, notion of time.
Oh my gosh, I can't answer that. That's
that's
way beyond my capacities to answer that. I don't have. I was thinking while you're saying this. I said, "Wow, okay, yes, this is." But I don't have the physics to.
No, we're not going into
physics. And I don't think I have the self-awareness to answer that for myself, other than maybe when I try to put it in a poem. It just. I think you're right that there's a constructed something there,
yes,
and then it gets constructed by these little details, and in these details there isn't that much in there, but I hope that there's enough for you that this is some kind of world. That you're able to construct with it. And then if it makes you think, or it brings you, I shouldn't say makes you, but if it brings you to think about things, to feel things, because poetry isn't just about thinking, of course, it's about feeling and sensing things, that somehow brings something to your life, then I'm good with that.
Well, it does.
But for answering precise questions about the poems themselves, I'm sorry, I really have trouble with it, because I've imposed plenty with what I wrote down there, and I don't want to. Hopefully, the poem works well enough that if I were to start proposing interpretations, I would be limiting it, and I'm very vain, and I don't want to limit my poems.
I think I would certainly go with that, because I don't think it's not a question of interpreting or over-interpreting, but I think at the outset there is a sensory experience which, may even go into smell. There's in so far as our observations and exchanges dealt with inspiration, with themes, with the way you write, and what comes first. The other idea, what it may have been, also the word. I think this lovely poem, which, by the way, reminds me of Charles Baudelaire, it's called Of Inspiration. Would you like to read it?
Would you like me to?
Yes, please, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Of inspiration. If light-starved could be gooey ache, and smell just slightly of carrion. Well, there you have it, where they come from, the poems.
Yes. Now, this is, as I said, it reminds me of course, of Une Charogne de Charles Baudelaire. La puanteur était si forte que sur l'herbe vous crûtes vous évanouir. In other words, it's enough that something smells a little bit like something, or that it looks different, or that there's a sound you hear, or, in one poem you refer to the movement of flowers in the wind, they're whipping in the wind. This is enough to get it creatively going in your mind and in your heart. But it is not romantic poetry, not at all. It is, so to speak, was a, I hate to say this, cognitive surplus. That is reflective. You are immediately involved with what's going on here. What does it mean? Myself seeing this, having this experience, and what can I make out of this for me? And then right away in dialogue with the other. Am I wrong on that, or?
Well, I think you're brilliant. You've really. I'm listening to what you're saying. I'm like, yeah, never thought of it. but it works, and I think you've really done your homework. My goodness, and put so much thought into these poems, into what's on the pages there, and I think that's you're very kind and very indulgent, and I'm listening to the analysis you're giving and trying to understand what on earth is this guy doing, and I think that you've certainly put your finger on a lot of things that are, they're certainly there, and of course now you've got me worried. I said I don't want to be listening to Hans next time I'm trying to write a poem and saying, what's he going to say about this? But yes, I think you've certainly put your finger on so much of what's going on there. And
I have referred to Umberto Eco, l'œuvre ouverte. Your work is an open work. It's open. It's not closed. It is in becoming poetry, and this is there as poetry, and this is so stimulating. And I warmly encourage our listeners to explore your poetry further. They can find the titles of your collections and of some of your other publications on our YouTube page, Literature News _HGR. Nicola Vulpe, thank you so much for this conversation. I enjoyed it immensely, and I have so much more to read, and as far as your work is concerned, and I'm just in the process of discovering it, and I will continue reading it, and we're going to have more conversations about your poetry. Well,
I'd love to have more conversations, period. Thank you so much. They don't have to be about my poetry. And thank you so much for you've been very, like I said, you've really done your homework. You've been very indulgent to me. I know I'm not always the best at answering questions. I'm a bit evasive, or maybe sometimes a lot evasive, because, well, for me, I don't want to fix things. Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you, Hans. Bye. Bye-bye. That was Literature News podcast on YouTube. I am Hans-Georg Ruprecht. Thank you very much for listening.